Hello everyone, I'm Emily, I'm 24, and I have always been known as the responsible one in my family. I grew up in a house where there was always something to do, and for some reason, I was always the one doing it. I was the kid who knew how to fold laundry neatly by the time I was 8. I cooked simple meals for my siblings before I was even a teenager. I helped my dad fix things around the house, holding flashlights for him in the garage at night while my brother Jack, who is now 27, was out with friends, and my little sister Sophie, who is now 20, was sitting in the living room playing with dolls. Jack was the golden boy, the one who always had a bit of a rebellious streak but never faced consequences because he was talented and charming. Sophie was the baby of the family, always doted on. I was the steady one, the reliable one, the one my parents leaned on when they needed help. My mom used to joke that I would make the best mom someday, even though I was never in a rush to prove her right. When I turned 13, I started babysitting neighborhood kids to earn some extra money. I learned quickly how to soothe tantrums, change diapers, and handle crying toddlers. By the time I was 16, I had regular families calling me to watch their kids every weekend. It was just part of who I was, the reliable girl who could handle responsibility. That reputation followed me into adulthood. After college, I was working part-time as a graphic designer while doing food delivery with DoorDash to make ends meet. I had my own little studio apartment in Charlotte, North Carolina. It was small and a little run down, but it was mine and I loved it. I was proud of myself for paying rent on time every month, even if it meant long hours of juggling 2 jobs. It was not glamorous, but I was managing. Then my landlord announced a massive rent hike. It was not just a small increase. It was enough to push my rent hundreds of dollars higher, and I knew I would not be able to afford it. I panicked. I was scrolling through apartment listings every night, and everything was either already taken or way too expensive. That was when my cousin Rachel reached out to me. Rachel is 31 and married to Tom, who is 33. They live in a big house in the suburbs with a big backyard and a playset for their 2 kids, Mia, who is 6, and Caleb, who is 4. Rachel and I had always been close. She is my older cousin, the one I used to idolize as a teenager because she was beautiful, confident, and always seemed to have her life together. I used to borrow her clothes in high school and felt like a grown-up when she took me shopping. She had always been kind to me, and I thought of her as the cool cousin who understood me. One night, after I had spent hours looking at overpriced apartments, Rachel texted me and said, "If you need a place to stay while you save up, you can stay in our guest room." I was honestly touched. I thought this was her way of paying it forward, of helping out the cousin who had always been there for her. I was so grateful. We made plans for me to move in. I told her I would try not to be a burden, and she reassured me that it would be fine. When I arrived at their house a week later with boxes in hand, I felt relieved. Tom helped me carry my stuff upstairs to the guest room. The house was beautiful, and I was already imagining how nice it would be to have some stability while I saved up money. That was when Rachel leaned against the doorway with this breezy tone and said, "By the way, if you want to live with us, you'll have to babysit my kids. I mean, I work long hours and daycare's so expensive. This would really help us out." I laughed because I thought she was joking. I said, "You can start packing your things, because if you're expecting a full-time nanny for free rent, that's not happening." Rachel blinked at me like she did not get it. I brushed it off, thinking she was being dramatic, and carried on unpacking while she gave an awkward laugh. That night, she texted me that we needed to talk. I went downstairs, and she sat me down in the kitchen. Tom was there too, leaning against the counter, looking a little uncomfortable. Rachel said that daycare was costing them $1,600 a month, and she figured I could watch the kids during the day since I worked remotely. She said she thought it would be a win-win situation, that I could live rent-free and help them out. I stayed calm and said, "I'm not your babysitter, Rachel. I moved here to save money, not to become unpaid childcare." The air in the kitchen went cold. Rachel huffed about how family helps family, but I reminded her that I already helped plenty. I had babysat Mia and Caleb for free on weekends plenty of times before. I had been the cousin she called when she needed a hand, and this was supposed to be a break for me, not a trap. Tom stayed quiet, clearly not wanting to get involved. The next week was tense. Rachel gave me the cold shoulder, but I stayed polite. I worked my day job from my laptop, kept my door shut, and bought my own groceries even though they had offered to share food. But then she started pushing the boundaries. She would leave Mia and Caleb in my room just for a few minutes and then disappear for an hour. One day, I came home from working at a coffee shop and found a note on the counter. It said, "When to Target. Kids are in the playroom. Be back soon." I immediately called her and told her this was not okay. She got defensive and said she thought I would be fine with it. That was the moment I realized I needed to put my foot down. That night I called my parents and explained everything. My mom, who has always been protective of me, was furious. She said, "Emily, you've helped everyone your whole life. Don't let them take advantage of you. Come home if you need to." Hearing her say that gave me the confidence to stand up for myself. The next morning, I sat Rachel and Tom down. I was calm but firm. I said, if this arrangement is going to continue, I'll need to pay a fair rent, and you'll need to get actual childcare. I'm not comfortable being your unpaid nanny. Rachel scoffed and said, "We thought family helps each other." I replied, "Exactly, and family doesn't exploit family." Tom looked embarrassed, like he agreed with me, but did not want to say it out loud. 2 days later, I started packing my things. Rachel barely said a word to me. Tom helped me carry my suitcase downstairs, and I felt a mix of relief and disappointment. I had looked up to Rachel for so long, but this whole situation showed me a side of her I did not expect. As I wheeled my suitcase out the front door, I said with a smile, "Good luck finding a babysitter." Rachel didn't even say goodbye. After leaving Rachel and Tom's house, I drove straight to my parents' place with my little hatchback stuffed full of boxes and trash bags of clothes. Their house is about 45 minutes away from Charlotte, tucked into a quiet suburban neighborhood that feels frozen in time compared to the chaos I'd been living in. When I pulled into their driveway, I felt this wave of relief wash over me. My mom had already made up the guest room, the same room I'd stayed in during college breaks, and she insisted on helping me carry my stuff in even though I told her I could manage. My dad gave me this knowing look, like he understood exactly how much I had been holding back. They charged me $300 a month for the guest room, which felt incredibly generous considering how expensive rent is everywhere else. It is not glamorous, the room is small, my things are stacked in corners, and I share a bathroom with Sophie when she is home from school, but it is peaceful. No more passive-aggressive comments, no more random babysitting demands, no more coming home to find a note telling me that 2 kids have been left in my care without my consent. Rachel, of course, could not let it go. A couple of days after I moved out, she sent me this long text paragraph, practically an essay, saying how I had abandoned her and that they had been counting on me. She claimed that I had promised to help with the kids, which I had never done. The message was dripping with guilt tripping, saying things like she thought families supported each other, and she felt betrayed. Reading it made me feel like I was the villain in some story she was telling herself, but I refused to take the bait. I sent back a single short message. "I'm not a babysitter, Rachel. I needed a place to stay, not a full-time job without pay." She never responded. She just left me on read. A few days later, I got a call from Tom while I was unpacking my clothes into the small dresser in my parents' guest room. He sounded tired and embarrassed. He apologized for the way everything had played out and admitted Rachel had been spiraling over daycare costs. He said he never agreed with dumping that responsibility on me, but he had not spoken up because he didn't want to fight with her. Then he told me something that honestly made my blood boil. Rachel had been venting to her mom, my aunt, and framing me as selfish. She made it sound like I had refused to help family in their time of need, which meant some relatives now thought I was a terrible person. Hearing that was like a punch to the gut. I had done so much for Rachel over the years, babysat for free, helped her decorate her house, even spent entire weekends watching Mia and Caleb so she and Tom could have a break. And now she was calling me selfish behind my back because I refused to be her unpaid nanny? Thankfully, my mom wasted no time setting the record straight. She got on the phone with my aunt and calmly explained everything, how Rachel had left her kids with me without asking, how she expected me to provide full-time childcare in exchange for rent, and how I had never agreed to that arrangement. My mom has always been my fiercest advocate, and she was livid that Rachel was trying to twist the narrative. After that call, things shifted. A few cousins started messaging me privately, telling me they believed me and that Rachel had done similar things to them. One cousin told me that Rachel had once invited her over for a family dinner and then left her alone with both kids for 3 hours while she and Tom went out. Another said Rachel used to ask her to just hang out and then conveniently disappear, leaving her stuck watching cartoons with the kids until bedtime. It was validating to hear those stories because it confirmed what I already suspected. Rachel has a pattern of using people's kindness as free labor. While all this family drama was brewing, I was focused on getting my life back on track. Living with my parents temporarily gave me breathing room, and for the first time in months, I was able to sit down with my laptop and apartment hunt without feeling panicked. I scrolled through listings for days, determined to find something affordable, and eventually, I found a place that felt like a perfect fit. A 3-bedroom apartment in a decent part of Charlotte with 2 other women around my age who seemed laid back and kind. The rent is way cheaper than living alone, and splitting utilities will make it even more manageable. I met them for coffee to see if we would get along, and the vibe was good. No weird tension, no passive-aggressive energy, just 2 women who want a quiet, clean place to live. I signed the lease and paid the deposit right away because I did not want to lose it. Moving back home has been humbling in some ways, but it has also been a blessing. My parents are happy to have me around, and I've been cooking dinner for them a few nights a week as a way of saying thank you. I've been saving money, catching up on work, and finally feeling like I'm in control again. The drama with Rachel still lingers in the background, but I'm starting to care less and less about her opinion. Her silence after my last message speaks volumes. I stood my ground, and she did not like it, but I refused to feel guilty for refusing to be used. For the first time in a while, I feel proud of myself. I have always been the responsible one, the one who helps everyone else, and it feels good to finally draw a line and say no. My parents have been nothing but supportive, and the cousins who reached out reassured me that I am not crazy for feeling taken advantage of. I am already planning my move, organizing boxes, and dreaming about what it will be like to have roommates and a space of my own again. It is a small victory, but it feels huge to me. I'm moving in next month, and I've already paid the deposit. I feel relieved and weirdly proud of myself for standing up to Rachel. I figured Rachel would cool off eventually, hire some proper childcare, and we go back to being polite at family gatherings. But if there's one thing I've learned over the last few months, it's that Rachel thrives on having a narrative where she's the overworked, underappreciated mom, and everyone else is failing her. According to my sister Sophie, Rachel has not stopped complaining about the cost of childcare since the day she had to actually start paying for it. Ironically, the nanny they hired is one of Sophie's friends. Sophie is 20 and in college, so she has a bunch of friends who are always looking for part-time work. This particular friend, Jenna, is great with kids and charges $18 an hour, which is honestly a very reasonable rate for someone taking care of 2 young children. Jenna has been watching Mia and Caleb a few days a week, and by all accounts, the kids love her. But Rachel complains constantly about how expensive it is, acting as if she's being drained financially. Sophie told me Rachel had the nerve to say, if Emily had just helped, we'd have saved thousands by now. Hearing that secondhand made me roll my eyes so hard I thought they might get stuck. Rachel is acting like I somehow owe her free labor because she invited me to stay with her for a few weeks. She conveniently ignores the fact that I never agreed to be her live-in babysitter and that she never offered me actual compensation for the work she expected me to do. The kicker is that Rachel and Tom are not struggling. Their house is gorgeous, in a nice neighborhood with a yard that looks like something out of a magazine. Tom works in IT and makes over $90,000 a year. Rachel is a nurse pulling in a solid salary too. They're comfortable, but they like to save cash wherever possible, even if it means guilting family members into free labor. I used to admire Rachel's ambition. She always had a plan, always seemed so put together, and I thought she was this role model of success. Now I see a side of her I wish I had noticed earlier. She is calculating. She knows how to frame things to get sympathy, how to make herself look like the victim, and she uses that image to manipulate the people around her. It stings to admit that I put her on a pedestal for years, but at least I see her clearly now. While Rachel has been busy complaining, I've been thriving. Moving into my new apartment with 2 roommates turned out to be one of the best decisions I've made in a long time. The place is small but cozy, and my roommates are laid back, respectful, and fun to hang out with. We split chores, we respect each other's space, and there's none of the tension I had living with Rachel. I decorated my room exactly how I wanted it, with plants on the windowsill and a little desk by the corner where I do my design work. It feels like a safe space, and after months of walking on eggshells in Rachel's house, that's priceless. Work has been going better than ever, too. When I first moved out, I promised myself I'd take freelancing seriously and stop undervaluing my time. I raised my rates, and it paid off. Not only did I land a long-term contract with a small marketing agency that loves my work, but I'm now able to save almost $1,000 a month. That number still blows my mind. For the first time, I feel like I have financial stability and a clear plan for the future. I'm no longer stressed about money every second of the day, and I don't feel like I owe anyone anything just to have a roof over my head. On top of that, I started going to therapy, which has been a game changer. My therapist listened to everything I went through with Rachel, and she said Rachel's behavior was textbook manipulation. Hearing a professional validate what I experienced felt like a weight off my shoulders. I spent so many nights second-guessing myself, wondering if I had overreacted or if I was being ungrateful. But my therapist pointed out all the red flags, the way Rachel guilt-tripped me, reframed the situation as me failing her, and tried to isolate me by turning family members against me. Those tactics are manipulative, plain and simple, and I was right to remove myself from that environment. Despite everything, I still see Mia and Caleb at family gatherings. I love those kids, and none of this is their fault. At a recent barbecue at my parents' house, Mia ran up to me with her arms outstretched and said she missed me. She climbed into my lap and told me she wished I still lived with them. Hearing that nearly broke me. Caleb is too little to understand everything that's been going on, but he smiled when he saw me and insisted I play with him in the yard. I try to be present for them whenever I see them, even if things with Rachel are strained. It hurts that things are so awkward between Rachel and me now. We used to be close, and I genuinely thought of her as a friend as much as a cousin. But I also know that boundaries are important, and choosing peace over being exploited was the right decision. Those kids are sweet, and I will always care about them, but I won't let Rachel's guilt-tripping drag me back into a situation that drained me. Therapy has helped me see that I'm not selfish for protecting myself. I'm healthier, happier, and more confident now than I was a few months ago, and that alone is worth all the tension. The truth is, I do miss the kids. I miss reading Mia bedtime stories and hearing Caleb's giggles when I played peekaboo with him. But I also know that if I had stayed, I would have been miserable and resentful, and that wouldn't have been good for anyone, least of all them. Standing up for myself was hard, but I can finally say I'm proud of the life I'm building. I'm surrounded by supportive people, I'm financially stable, and I no longer feel like I'm walking on eggshells in my own living space. I still love Mia and Caleb, and I'll always be there for them when I can, but I won't let Rachel rewrite the story to make me the villain. It breaks my heart, but I know I made the right call. Last weekend, my parents hosted one of their classic family barbecues, the kind they've been throwing for as long as I can remember. They went all out, like always. My dad was at the grill hours before everyone arrived, marinating chicken and ribs like it was a competition, while my mom had the kitchen counter lined with potato salad, baked beans, corn on the cob, and her famous peach cobbler cooling by the window. Family gatherings used to stress me out when Rachel and I were close, because I always felt like I had to play peacekeeper, especially when she was in one of her moods. This time, though, I felt completely different. I walked in with a bottle of wine, a smile on my face, and this new sense of confidence I've gained over the past year. Rachel and Tom arrived nearly an hour late, pulling up in their shiny SUV. I noticed immediately that they looked frazzled. Tom was trying to wrangle the kids out of their car seats, while Rachel was fixing her makeup in the passenger mirror. When they finally walked up to the backyard, Rachel looked like she hadn't slept in days, and Tom had that tight, polite smile he always wears when he's trying to hold things together. Mia and Caleb came running up to me like they always do, throwing their arms around me, and I knelt down to hug them both, genuinely happy to see them. But I could already tell something was off. It didn't take long for the gossip to start trickling in. My cousin Lily whispered to me that Rachel's nanny had quit, and when I asked why, Lily rolled her eyes and said she had heard Rachel wasn't paying her on time. Apparently, Jenna had been asking for her payments at the end of each week, and Rachel kept telling her she'd catch her up next time, until Jenna finally had enough and quit. It didn't surprise me. Rachel has always been meticulous about her finances, but not in a healthy way. She prides herself on being frugal and clever with money, but what I've learned is that she often does it at other people's expense. Hearing that Jenna had quit made me sad for the kids, though, because they had loved her. When Tom walked over later, plate in hand, he joked in this half-serious way that they might need to send the kids to Emily's babysitting camp. I smiled sweetly and said, "I'm charging $30 an hour now," and then turned and walked away before he could respond. The look on his face was priceless. I didn't say it to be cruel, but I wanted him to know that the version of me who let myself get walked over was gone. I've worked hard to build up my business, raise my rates, and stand my ground, and I refuse to let Rachel and Tom treat me like free labor ever again. Later in the evening, my Aunt Rachel's mom pulled me aside while I was refilling my glass of lemonade. She looked genuinely remorseful and said she wanted to apologize for assuming Rachel was right months ago when this whole thing first happened. She told me that she hadn't realized how much Rachel had been exaggerating and twisting things. She admitted that Rachel has a habit of playing the victim to get sympathy, and she said, "You were smart to get out of that situation." We all see it now. Hearing that from her meant more than I can even put into words. For months after I left Rachel's house, I felt like the villain of the family, like I was the selfish cousin who didn't want to help. To have Rachel's own mother admit that I had been right felt like a weight lifting off my chest. As the night went on, I noticed Rachel sitting off to the side, scrolling on her phone. She wasn't her usual loud, commanding self. She barely interacted with anyone other than Tom and the kids. It was strange to see her so reserved, but part of me wondered if she was embarrassed. Her reputation in the family has definitely shifted. People have started to see the pattern of her taking advantage of others, and the fact that Jenna quit was just another piece of proof. Rachel has been colder to the whole family lately, and I think she knows her narrative is slipping. Meanwhile, my life has been moving forward in ways I never imagined a year ago. I drove to the barbecue in my new car, something I was able to buy outright after months of careful saving. I have a solid savings account now, a growing emergency fund, and for the first time in my adult life, I feel like I'm not living paycheck to paycheck. My freelance business has exploded. I've got steady clients, a long-term contract that's paying me well, and new projects rolling in every month. I've been able to travel a little, too, taking weekend trips with friends and actually enjoying my time instead of constantly stressing over money or family drama. And, to my surprise, I've started dating someone. His name is Adam, and he's one of the most thoughtful people I've ever met. We met through mutual friends at a trivia night, and we just clicked. He's supportive, funny, and grounded, and being with him has made me realize how much I used to settle in all aspects of my life, not just with Rachel, but with relationships, friendships, and work. It feels good to be with someone who respects me and encourages me to set boundaries instead of tearing them down. Sometimes I think back to that day when Rachel leaned against the doorway with that breezy attitude and said, "If you want to live with us, you'll have to babysit my kids," like she was doing me some kind of favor by giving me a roof over my head. I remember laughing and telling her, "You can start packing your things," because I honestly thought she was joking. That moment was a turning point for me. It was the first time I truly stood my ground, even if I didn't realize how significant it was at the time. I've always been the responsible one in the family, the helper, the person who picks up slack without being asked, but I've learned that being responsible doesn't mean letting yourself be taken advantage of. Looking back now, I don't regret a single thing. Standing up to Rachel cost me some relationships and caused tension in the family, but it also pushed me to build a life I'm proud of. I've got my independence, I've got supportive friends and family who see the truth, and I finally put myself first without feeling guilty about it. I'm proud of the boundaries I set and the growth I've had since that day, and every time I see Rachel act cold or distant, I'm reminded that I made the right decision. I don't regret it one bit.